up, Cuts? It's your boy, the Hater. Before we get started, do your boy a favor. Take a moment to subscribe if you haven't. It helps me out a lot. Maybe throw a like your way. And if you're feeling extra generous, throw a comment in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to grow here. My new goal is to get to 5,000 subscribers as soon as possible. Hopefully by September, October. I would like to achieve that goal. It's a little bit crazy because for the longest time I didn't have any kind of growth because I wasn't taking it seriously. But if you could help your boy, that'd be good. The more I grow, the more motivated I become, and the higher my content is gonna get, right? The better it's gonna get, the more inspired I will be. And once we hit certain milestones, I promise you, it'll be worth it. Now, with that being said, let's get to the topic du jour. Cody Rhodes' title reign. Now, I have talked about this before, but I feel compelled to continue to talk about it for one reason and one reason only. That reason is very much this. I have been right about everything thus far, right? Obviously, we all saw it coming that Cody Rhodes was going to win the title at Mania. While we hoped that there was a way out, that didn't manifest, so here we are. But one thing that I did predict, and you can go back and watch these videos, one thing that I did predict was actually quite simple. I predicted very, very clearly, Cucks, very, very clearly that once Cody won, it would be a dead end, right? Cody, his character and his quote-unquote storyline, which is bullshit. You guys know it's bullshit. It's bullshit because when Cody Rhodes was in the storyline, it was called the Bloodline storyline. It wasn't even called the Cody Rhodes storyline. It was called the Bloodline storyline because the primary storyline that anyone was interested in was The Rock's integration into the Bloodline. Now, with all that being said, we have to take a few moments and recognize that, not specifically that I was right, but that the writing was on the walls. Some may see the writings on the wall, see the writings on the wall. I pulled a little Jeff Hardy out of my hat with that one. But the idea is this. Once Cody Rhodes became the WWE champion, everybody kind of knew that there would be nothing else after that, right? And I predicted correctly that eventually what would happen immediately after the first episode of Raw and maybe the first episode of SmackDown, because those are to be expected, right? It's understandable if the next night on Raw or the next SmackDown even, Cody Rhodes comes out and says, I did it for my dad, I did it for The Rock. He could say all these things, right? That's fine. We even want that, right? We want the person who has achieved their goal and their dream to have that moment, right? That moment is not just at WrestleMania, even though he did have it there, because like 25 nobodies came out to support him. Like all of a sudden, Gargano and LA Knight are there to support him. It's kind of weird. But anyways, I digress. I don't want to focus on that. After that, it has pretty much been this. Cody Rhodes has had one match against Carmelo Hayes on free TV, and everything else has been a bunch of nonsense of Cody Rhodes coming out in beige, brown, or otherwise weird colored suits and cutting the same promo again and again and again. Now, because they ran out of ideas and someone realized, wait a second, we can't have Cody cut the same promo again and again and again and again and again, he's been shifting the promos a little bit. We got such gems like the rip-off Mark Henry promo with AJ Styles. We got a promo and a segment where Cody Rhodes has Logan Paul frisked. He has him frisked for brass knucks so that he can, prove that Logan Paul is a cheater. Like we already knew that, number one. Two, the directionless path of Cody Rhodes is being exposed. We had a dumbass match between him and AJ Styles, right? When was that? That was Backlash, France, right? Was it in France? I think it was in Paris, or was it in Austria? It doesn't matter, somewhere in Europe. I think it was in France. Let's just say it was France for the sake of it. This was early May, right? And then after that, we had like him versus Logan Paul. And after that, what are we going to have? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to have. We're going to have Cody Rhodes once again versus AJ Styles, it looks like, right? So it's like it just keeps going back and forth and back and forth. And the idea here is that there's a few heels on SmackDown and Cody has to beat them because there's no one else for him to feud against. Now, Cody Rhodes could help establish somebody, right? And I know you're thinking, oh, Hater, he just became champion. It's not time for him to put people over yet. Well, the problem is People talk a lot of shit about how Triple H buried everybody, right? But for some reason, the same standard doesn't get applied to the likes of Cody Rhodes, who has literally put over nobody in his career. Now, I know you're thinking, but Hater, you always say that he's a mid-card jobber who spent a lot of times jobbing. Yeah, there's a difference between jobbing and actually putting someone over. When I'm talking about putting someone over, I'm talking about situations where when the person has some sort of clout, some sort of prestige, and maybe a championship, they might be able to put someone over like Triple H did to Shelton Benjamin, right? Or like Triple H did to Curtis Axel. Or like Triple H did to Cena. Or like Triple H did to Orton. Or like Triple H did to Batista. Right? Or like Triple H did to fucking Ric Flair. You see what I'm saying? Or even Hulk Hogan. The idea that Triple H buried everybody is complete nonsense. He put over so many more people than he buried. And while I don't like Triple H as a booker, I cannot deny the fact that as a wrestler, he was top-notch in the sense that he put people over. He understood his role. His role was to get the company over. Right? That's why he lost to everybody. He lost to Hulk Hogan. He lost to Randy Orton. He lost to Batista. He even got them over in Evolution. He lost to Legacy, for God's sake, him and Shawn Michaels, right? He was out there jobbing like a cuck left and right. And what do we have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. But at the end of the day, who cares, right? The point remains the same. Cody Rhodes has never put anybody over during this time that he's been like a big deal, right? Which at this point numbers several years. He has not put anybody over. I don't think he's lost to anybody, right? And if he has, it's like some tag team nonsense, Either way, it doesn't matter. The point here is this. I think that even the most ardent and the most impassioned Cody Rhodes or Rhodey Chodes fans, as we say in this channel, even the most hardcore of the Cody Crybabies, the Rhodey Chodes, Rudy Poo fans, even the most extreme of these people must admit, I think at this point, it's undeniable. Everyone has to admit that there is absolutely no chance that this title reign can be considered anything other than a bust. Now, people are thinking, I'm sure, well, it's only been 2 months. Back in the day, people had meaningful 2-month title reigns before dropping the belt. Look at Mick Foley. I think he's been champion for a total of like 3 months, and he's had the title 3 times, right? Transitional champion. I'm not saying Cody should drop it, but I'm saying Cody should get the ball rolling, right? It is not enough for Cody Rhodes to come out there and have no drive, right? Even Roman Reigns, when he was out there, like as the champion, he wanted to get the other title. He wanted the Usos to become tag team champions. Then he wanted the Usos to get the other tag team champions, right? Now, the benefit here is this. Because we have a jobber as the world heavyweight champion in Damian Priest, he can take all the big dick challengers on the other show, on the real A show, Monday Night Raw, right? The reality is this. You cannot both put Cody over and Gunther over, right? Because we've seen that song and dance before. Cody Rhodes has pretty much humiliated Gunther for 2 years in a row. But Gunther can sure as shit go and beat up Drew McIntyre. He's already beaten him 100 times. He can go beat up Damian Priest, who, is like a bullshit champion. He can go and do these things, right? But isn't it convenient that like the big match at the next pay-per-view, I don't know if it's the next pay-per-view, but at Clash in the Castle, right? The big match is obviously the Drew McIntyre match. That's the big draw. That's the, if you will, the main event, right? Once that happens, once we've got our good friend Drew McIntyre taken care of in the main event, then what's Cody Rhodes going to do? Well, I'll tell you what he's going to do. Exactly what I always said he was going to do. And that is do what he does best, and that is play second fiddle to the real wrestlers, right? It doesn't matter. And when I say real wrestlers, I'm talking about Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, and Gunther. I'm not talking about like fucking The Rock, Stone Cold, and Hulk Hogan. I'm talking about three glorified mid-carders, 2 of which are legit mid-carders that should be nowhere near the world title scene, but I digress. The point I'm trying to make is very, very self-evident in my personal opinion. The reality is that Cody Rhodes' title reign has been a complete bust, and this will prove it. There is no way in blue hell that AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes are going to main event in Scotland over Drew McIntyre. Absolutely not, right? And that's all it takes. All it takes is one. Every pay-per-view that Roman Reigns was in, Roman Reigns was the main event, unless it was something special, like, fucking Royal Rumble or something like that. And even then, he might be in the main event, right? Every time he defended the title, it felt like a big deal. Cody Rhodes is defending the title at the same frequency, and it still doesn't feel like a big deal. It feels like a mid-card match. Do you remember that time when it felt like every pay-per-view, it was Dean Ambrose versus Luke Harper for their Intercontinental title? There was like 6 pay-per-views in 1 year where it was like they're just fighting over the bullshit title, even though Dean Ambrose, I think at that point already had been a world champion. It doesn't matter. They're fighting over the BS Intercontinental title, right? And we're supposed to just kind of like accept this. And then you periodically they would introduce like AJ Styles in there, maybe Finn Balor, and then even Seth Rollins, right? And then next year, it could be the same match but for the world title, and nobody would blink, right? Nobody would blink. Like, think about it this way. The fact that Drew McIntyre went from main eventing WrestleMania to being beaten by Gunther in a meaningless triple threat match a few WrestleManias later, to now being back fighting for the world title at WrestleMania, shows exactly what I'm saying. There is no consistency, right? Meanwhile, Gunther has stayed mid-card jobber this entire time. Like, Drew McIntyre has gotten like 100 opportunities. Gunther hasn't gotten one, even though he deserves 15 more, kayfabe-wise. Cody Rhodes is in the mix there somewhere, but all he's doing is failing and dropping the ball. So as far as I'm concerned, Rhodey Chodes, Cody Rhodes, Cucky Rhodes, it doesn't matter what you call him. He sucks, motherfucks. He sucks.